Welcome back to the Chattable podcast, where we learn real English in real life, enrich vocabulary, and feel proud. Today, we are doing an episode on something I find just, completely fascinating.
Yeah, it really is a great topic.
Like how the incredibly physical, tangible world, from like human bodies to the actual acoustics of sounds, how all of that is used to describe these massive, high-stakes, abstract concepts.
Right, like global geopolitics and corporate sincerity.
Exactly.
And, by understanding the physical origins of two very specific phrases today, you, the listener, are going to be able to instantly decode the true weight behind, say, international alliances.
Oh, for sure.
And, you'll know exactly how to test those carefully crafted corporate PR apologies we see literally every single day in our news feeds.
So let's just jump right in. Our first phrase today is, it's highly physical. The phrase is lock arms with.
Lock arms with, right.
And to show how this is used, out in the wild, I was reading this geopolitical analysis recently, and the writer used this exact language.
Okay, what did they say?
They wrote, and I quote, "In contrast with the United States, which is pursuing unilateralism, China is eagerly locking arms with Russia and its allies in creating an alternative world power dynamic around its orbit."
Right, so looking at that purely as language analysts, and just to be extremely clear for you listening, we are absolutely not taking any political sides here.
No, not at all.
We are just looking at the mechanics of the vocabulary. But that choice, the phrase locking arms, it's doing a massive amount of heady lifting for that journalist.
Oh, definitely.
Because to really grasp the gravity of it, you have to picture the history. So think back to the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When activists were facing opposition, like a line of riot police, they didn't just stand next to each other. And they definitely didn't just hold hands.
Well, yeah, holding hands is super fragile, right? Like a palm gets sweaty, your grip slips, and suddenly the line just breaks.
Exactly. A human hand just cannot withstand that much sheer force. So instead, the protesters would physically link their elbows together and grab the wrists of the people next to them.
Whoa.
Yeah, they were literally weaving their bodies into this unbreakable human chain.
The geometry of that is actually kind of brilliant when you think about it. Because if you lock elbows and grab a wrist, you've essentially built this structural wall out of human bone and muscle.
Right.
If the opposition tries to pull just one person out of the line, they literally can't do it without pulling the entire group. You're distributing the force across dozens of bodies.
That is exactly the point. The physical mechanism is entirely about mutual defense, this inseparable unity.
Yeah.
So when you pull that physical reality back into our target sentence about geopolitics, the writer isn't just saying these nations are signing a piece of paper.
Right. They aren't just forming some dry bilateral treaty.
Exactly. By using this protest metaphor, it conveys a deeply unified public alliance designed specifically to defend against a mutual threat. It signals that trying to isolate or pull one nation away is practically impossible.
Okay, so let me test the limits of this a bit. Let's use a ridiculously low-stakes example just to see where the metaphor breaks down.
Sure, go for it.
Say, my roommate and I agree to split the cost of an Uber to the airport just to save some cash. We are combining our resources for a mutual goal. So are we locking arms to get to the terminal?
No, definitely not. And you're hitting on the core rule of the phrase right there. Splitting an Uber is just a casual, temporary convenience.
Right.
The reason locking arms fails completely in that scenario is because the phrase inherently demands a high-stakes mission.
Yeah.
And, crucially, public solidarity. Nobody is trying to physically pull you and your roommate apart on the way to the airport.
That is true. There is no opposition force at the baggage claim.
Right, exactly. So the phrase really has to be reserved for massive, highly committed partnerships where entities show absolute unity against immense external pressure.
That pressure aspect makes total sense. You need a threat to justify the defensive posture. And that actually brings up this corporate example from our sources, specifically the streaming wars.
Oh yeah, the Disney one.
Exactly. When the market got super competitive, Disney didn't just casually partner up. The media said they decided to lock arms with Hulu and ESPN to create this massive bundled subscription package.
Right.
And they did this to fight the massive market dominance of Netflix.
Exactly. You have these distinct, massive entities facing a formidable external threat. So by locking arms, they're signaling to Wall Street that this isn't just a temporary summer promo. It is a unified front.
They're combining their weight so they can't be picked off one by one. But wait, let me push back on that narrative for a second. Is it really an unbreakable front? Because corporate bundles and mergers fall apart all the time. By using the phrase locking arms, isn't the media sort of just doing Disney's PR work for them?
Oh, absolutely.
Like they're taking a standard business deal and painting it with this heroic, defiant imagery of a 1960s protest.
That is a phenomenal catch. And it really highlights the hidden danger of powerful metaphors. Journalists use these phrases because they're colorful and engaging, but you're totally right. It adopts the corporation's idealized version of events.
Yeah.
Disney wants the market to perceive them as an unbreakable wall. The language shapes that reality for the consumer, projecting invulnerability.
Right, regardless of how fragile the boardroom agreements might actually be behind closed doors.
Precisely.
So, okay, we see locking arms projecting this solid wall, but what happens when you tap on that wall to see if it's solid and you find out it's just completely empty on the inside?
That is a great question.
Like, how do we describe public statements or words that completely lack genuine substance?
Well, that transitions us perfectly to our second phrase. We're moving away from the physical friction of human bodies and into the world of acoustics. The phrase is ring hollow.
Ring hollow. I love the sensory shift here.
It's very different, yeah.
And we see this applied to the tech industry a lot. There's this target sentence from an article criticizing social media platforms that just nails it.
Let's hear it.
It says, there is an increasing amount of criticism against Facebook and other tech giants that their moral values ring so hollow, with so many of social and mental health problems stem from the very products they bring to our lives.
Yeah, so to really understand why a writer would use an acoustic term like ring hollow for moral values, we have to look at the history of counterfeit money.
Counterfeit money, okay.
Yeah, so centuries ago, before we had, digital scanners and advanced tech, shopkeepers would test a coin by subjecting it to the drop test. If you take a solid, high-quality silver coin and drop it on a wooden bar, it produces a very specific acoustic vibration.
Right.
You hear this rich, resonant, authentic ring that literally lingers in the air.
Because the metal is pure all the way through, right? Like it has a musicality to it. It
Right.
sounds true.
Exactly. But counterfeiters were clever. They would take a cheap, low-density metal like lead and just coat the outside in a thin layer of shiny silver. To the naked eye, it looked totally real.
Right, but the physics of sound cannot be fooled by a coat of paint.
Exactly. When a tavern owner dropped that fake coin, the sound waves hit the cheap lead core and instantly die. It doesn't ring at all. It just produces this flat, dull clunk. It sounds entirely hollow.
Oh, wow. Okay, so metaphorically, when a tech company puts out these gorgeous, glossy mission statements about, connecting the world and prioritizing user well-being, those are the shiny silver-painted words.
Yes, that's just the surface level.
But the acoustic test is the public actually comparing those words with what the products do in reality.
You're tapping the coin against reality.
And when you tap those words against the real social and mental health problems stemming from the products, it just clunks. There's no resonance.
Right.
The moral values ring entirely hollow to the public ear.
It's just an incredibly sophisticated tool for calling out hypocrisy. You use it when an organization or a person claims to care deeply, but their actual behavior proves the exact opposite.
Yeah.
The words might be perfectly scripted by a crisis management team, but when you drop them on the counter of reality, there's no substance backing them up. Another really stark example we found involves the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
Oh, man, yeah. That was a generational catastrophe. Just millions of gallons of crude oil devastating the Gulf Coast, totally ruining livelihoods and entire marine ecosystems.
Right. And right in the middle of this unprecedented environmental disaster, the CEO at the time, Tony Hayward, issued this formal public apology.
I remember this.
He stood in front of the world cameras, used all the right vocabulary to express sorrow. But that apology completely, totally rang hollow to the locals.
Because of what he did right after.
Exactly. Almost immediately after delivering it, he was caught complaining to the press saying, "I'd like my life back."
That is the ultimate flat, dead sound.
Truly.
I mean, he's standing there talking to people who literally lost their generational family businesses and their homes, and he makes the tragedy about his own personal temporary inconvenience.
Yeah, the selfishness of that unscripted moment acted as the drop test. It proved the apology was completely counterfeit on the inside. It lacked any real empathy or understanding of the stakes, so it rang hollow.
So let me find the boundary on this one too, just to be super precise with how we use it. Let's bring it down to a personal level. Say I have a really good friend who completely forgets my birthday. It's a careless mistake, but they are genuinely devastated when they realize what they did. They give me a sincere apology, they don't make excuses, and they take me out to an amazing dinner to make up for it. Does their initial apology ring hollow just because they messed up in the first place?
No, absolutely not. And that's a really crucial distinction for the listener to remember. A heartfelt apology or a simple factual error does not ring hollow.
Because the core is real.
Exactly. Your friend made a mistake, but their remorse was real. And their follow-up actions, buying you dinner or taking accountability, prove their words had a solid core. The phrase ring hollow is strictly reserved for a total lack of sincerity.
Right.
It implies an intentional underlying emptiness. It is designed for the broken political promises or the fake corporate PR, not for genuine human flaws accompanied by true remorse.
Man, think about the incredible journey we just took through the mechanics of the English language in this episode. We started by looking at the physical geometry of 1960s protesters linking their wrists and elbows. And we learn how that physical mechanism gives us locking arms, which journalists use to instantly communicate the unified defiance of massive streaming companies or geopolitical alliances.
It's a powerful image.
And then we shifted to the physics of acoustic sound. A tavern owner dropping a counterfeit coin on a bar gives us ring hollow, providing us with the perfect tool to call out the dull hypocrisy of tech giants whose pretty words are empty inside.
It really highlights how desperately our brains need these physical anchors to make sense of all the dizzying, abstract news we consume. We don't just read information, we feel its weight, and we listen to its resonance.
Exactly.
And that actually brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with, just something to critically mull over as you scroll through the headlines this week.
Oh, I like this.
We live in a world filled with massive corporate mergers, international treaties, and nonstop public relations spinning the narrative. So when those massive entities stand in front of the cameras and publicly lock arms in a grand show of absolute unity, how often do the promises they make to us, the public, end up ringing hollow behind closed doors?
That is a brilliant question to end on. Language is not just about what is being said. It is about the physical reality and sometimes the empty space behind the words. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Listen closely to the real meaning behind the words you hear in the news this week, and we will catch you next time.